We work together. So I'd like to tell you how Stephen Jackson and I met. Is actually Reverend John Borthwick's become a friend over the years. He's been at St. Andrew's, Guelph, and I'm sure it was him that sent me an email. If not, it was definitely John or Reverend Heather Leffler over at Rockwood. They said, hey, this guy Stephen Jackson's doing some pretty incredible work in Kitchener, and he's hoping for some kind of healing center here in Guelph. And I think that's where it started. And believe it or not, Stephen, that comes up like about a year ago this spring. And then you invited us, some from Three Willows and Trinity. I remember Ken Chupa was with me and Sharon. We went and had a tour of your incredible outreach. And since that time, you've Zoomed with Gum. And you've met some wonderful people, and they've been inspired by some of your story. And it's led everyone to keep asking, we'd like to hear more. So I'm going to welcome you to come forward. And I thought I'm going to let you do most of the talking, but I want for you to begin by the 3 or 4 questions I have, is to tell us a little bit about you and reconciliation. And please take your mask off.
Well, thank you so much for, hearing us and for the honor of your time. Definitely appreciate that. As John said, Stephen, CEO from Anishnabeg Outreach, and with me is Caitlin and Jess. They both work with us and work with me. I'm going to start with reconciliation because to me that is the journey forward.
You're so tall. Just a little bit more.
Okay.
Height.
I'm going to start with reconciliation because for me, I started talking about it maybe a year or so ago because I look at it as a model that encompasses all Canadians. And whether you're Indigenous or whether you're colonial, it's something that encompasses everybody. Everyone's part of that contract as a way forward. And when I think of reconciliation, the way we think of it is in colonial terms. In Indigenous terms, it's going to be slightly different, but in colonial terms, it's about achieving 3 pillars. And if we achieve 3 pillars, reconciliation can be accomplished in our lifetime, plain and simply. And the first pillar is mostly for Indigenous people. What we have to do, and it's partly in Truth and Reconciliation, and the way Truth and Reconciliation is defined is justice and healing. And there's a bunch of action items, but justice and healing. And when we think of justice, we don't really think of justice per se. I think that's really a government artifact in order to compensate for transgressions that happened previously. We think of it as injustice, not justice, but injustice and healing. And of the 2 concepts, healing is the most important. So the way we think of reconciliation at Anishnabeg Outreach is healing and economic independence. In other words, if we help Indigenous people heal from all those intergenerational traumas, they have the same opportunities everyone else has. And if we help them with the economic independence, which is really just employment opportunities, then they're made whole. That's the best way to describe it. I think we have to go a bit beyond that, though. We have to help by giving back culture. We have to give back language. We have to rebuild families, rebuild communities. So if we do just that, healing, economic independence, and the giving back of those elements, I think that enables Indigenous people to achieve reconciliation. One of the things that we've done, we partner with, pretty much everybody. It's true.
It's true.
And we partner with everyone. It's not so much that we partner with everybody. We partner with everyone who wants to partner with us, who wants to, together, you're always stronger together, right? And so if we have outcomes that we're interested in, which are really, as I described, the first pillar, other people have that same interest. They want to achieve those same outcomes, but in reality, there's no trust for colonial organizations. Just a little bit of history, I suppose. And the issues that we're facing in every single city, it doesn't matter which one it happens to be, urban center. It's 50% of our homeless population is Indigenous, all right? That came from Guelph CHC. 30% of prison populations, if you're male, are Indigenous, but if it's female, it's actually 50% of the prison populations. And somewhere between 75 and 100, so 50 and 75% of children in care are Indigenous. There was the 60s scoop, there's residential schools, kids in care are just the latest iteration of that. So there's a 500% higher dropout rate in school. So those are all...
What percentage, Steve, of dropout?
500% higher.
500% higher.
Right, for Indigenous versus non-Indigenous. Wow. And we know what that system is. I mean, it's whether it's discrimination, unconscious bias, conscious bias, whatever the case happens to be. Maybe it's just bullying, I don't really know. But there is a massive higher dropout rate, which impacts Indigenous people's ability to even have equal footing with everyone else, right? There's issues, without a doubt. And what we've done is we partnered with a tech company. And a tech company, they donated a massive amount of time to us. They built a learning management system so that we can provide all those things, the culture, the language, job opportunities, ability to build businesses, ability to learn how to play sports. And all those are all just partnerships. So the sports ones are people like the Blue Jays, the Leafs, the Raptors, to create videos with us to help teach people how to play sports so they can belong. Because if they make their school teams, it means a lot of that discrimination, racism is mitigated a bit, right? So it's it's about doing a little bit of everything, I think. However, as I was talking about those issues, like the percentages, right? What that really means is, and you've watched the news, so you see about Joyce Echawan, who was chained to a bed and died, right? What you're really seeing is Indigenous people are afraid of systems because those systems have in fact impacted people, Indigenous people, negatively, right? So the problem with, I guess, someone else saying, another government, another agency, another whoever, it doesn't matter who it is, saying, let's just build a program and give them this program and make them whole. It doesn't work. No one will come. There's no trust. The only way it's possible as a way forward is by partnering. And so that's why we partner. And I say we partner with everyone. I sent John an email.
Is it police in Monica House now? And police?
Yes, that was just earlier this week. So a police officer joined us earlier this week from Waterloo Regional Police as an Indigenous liaison officer. And not everyone understands, why would you partner with police? Well, because we have to. If we want to change the paradigm or change the outcomes, the only way we'll ever achieve that is through partnership, by sort of sharing what we do and what our outcomes are in order for them to have the same type of outcomes, to reduce, again, discrimination, racism, everything else, right? So the first pillar is all about helping Indigenous people become whole and achieve success that everyone else has, right? And I talk about this, if I had a magic wand and I simply, did whatever Harry Potter does and healed all Indigenous people and gave them economic opportunities, I would ask you, where would we be? The answer is nowhere. Because unfortunately, every single system in every single company is a barrier for Indigenous people. So in order to achieve, success or achieve that first outcome, we actually have to work with all companies. And we do that through partnership, and sometimes we do it through reconciliation training, We go through a whole process in relation to that. Because when you go through all those various action items, action item 92.2 is related to equity. And equity means representation, in this case, in business, at the board level, at senior management, at middle management, at lower management, and so on, right? And a lot of organizations are focused on building equity. I mean, they have Black Lives Matter. Equity has been in business for 40 years, mostly for racialized groups, not necessarily for Indigenous. And if I asked any company, where have you achieved equity in 40 years despite directors, VPs, and all the rest? The answer is no. The answer is no, because they didn't do the first pillar. Unless you help build the talent pool, doesn't matter what you do on the business side, if there's no talent pool or people to go into those jobs, it'll just never happen. So we spend a lot of our time, Kate, Jess, myself, and others, helping companies learn to remove those barriers. And John witnessed some of this. We call it unconscious bias, white privilege. I don't like using the word white privilege. we'll just call it colonial privilege from my perspective. And it's this bias that it almost seems like superiority or not in my backyard. It's not really that embracing of let's work together. It's let's work together on my terms. That's kind of the way it comes out. And for us to achieve the second pillar, it's really helping all organizations, which is also why we partnered with police, of course. It's our way to really help them. It's why we partner with healthcare. It's our way to help them in schools and everything else, right? We need to break down those systems and those barriers. The partnership with Monica's Place, and every place has a Monica's Place, every urban center, I mean. It's a place where unwed teen mothers go who need shelter, and they're sheltered, of course, but they're also taught how to look after their kids. The idea is that you break that social system, and I don't know if that actually works or not in the current paradigm. We're partnering with them because we have partnerships with organizations that could take their people, their clients, and put them into jobs afterwards. We can do the training. We can use our AO Nest. That, in fact, is the magic wand. It gives people all the training and all the other supports that they need. The third pillar is in relation to raising awareness with everyone. And that's absolutely key from a change management perspective and from a delivery perspective. And again, not that I want to talk about more partnerships, but it's more partnerships. One of our partnerships, we haven't announced yet, we should be announcing this week or next week, is with an organization out of University of Waterloo called Dragon's Lab. And Dragon's Lab approached us a while back, and they do 3D printing. And they want to have us teach other people how to do 3D printing, which is a great thing. It's kind of nice. But they also do 3D scanning. Yeah. 3D scanning is the key of all of this, and the printing. So, I mean, I know John was talking about what is the vision, but imagine this. What if we 3D scan Indigenous artifacts that are currently stored behind walls and storage areas in museums, and those scans became available to every school? So instead of learning about history or science or engineering, it's hands-on. You actually get to print whatever that artifact happens to be, to learn about it, but to also learn about the reconciliation story in relation to that. Tomorrow I have a meeting with another organization to build a partnership. They're Let's Talk Science. They're a national organization that has access to build curriculum for schools. Well, if I now pair this 3D printing with this, and with the museums, of course, and with this organization that does, curriculum, we now have the ability to go in every school across the country, and again, change hearts and minds with that.
I wanted to show some pictures of your outreach center.
Oh, sure.
And friends, what you got here is, actually the guy in the back is a United Church minister, and Gary's a friend of mine in Kitchener, but there's some of our gang from Three Willows, and of course myself there. And the reason I wanted to show a couple of these pictures is, like this Lutheran church, is now been transformed. I don't know if we got another slide there to show you. Been transformed into a working space for Anishnabeg outreach. But why I'm sharing you this is, what I find very fascinating about your vision, Stephen, is, and I think you parallel this with the church, is this is important for people to gather, but just as essential, and maybe even more, is the online. Like this AO Nest, this outreach is significantly across Canada and into reserves, and the best way to connect is online as well.
Yeah, very much so. And
by the way, you made that table, didn't you?
Yes,
Taylor?
all the tables actually. So the one on the right is actually 43 feet of live edge walnut. It's a beautiful table. It's like one tree. And the one in the middle is actually a beautiful oak one with the legs on it. And then this one's a stump, actually.
What these pictures don't show, though, is a beautiful kitchen, restrooms, washrooms like I've never seen in my life. Stephen, you said every room should be like a Christmas gift opening it, and it really is quite amazing to see what you've accomplished there. I also found the spirit bundles, which you have talked about, perhaps coming here to Guelph with that, and maybe even perhaps with Trinity, where you deliver food, but also clothing, sometimes furniture, but the big issue is often storing it, and then your van delivers it, not just to Kitchener or Waterloo, but also here in Guelph.
Yes, yeah, very much so. So, a couple of years ago, I talked about centers of healing, and John talked about online. And 2 years ago, I didn't have my connections to the tech industry in Waterloo, which is fabulous for us. And they help us with building systems, and those systems are either, that AO Nest is a learning management system. What that learning management system can become is a repository for stories, for songs, for ceremonies, for knowledge keeper or elder teachings, languages, really, I guess best first starts are land-based learning for children and youth, right? Basically, it's a way to learn how to get jobs and things. I view it, I call that thing really the everything of everything for Indigenous people. It's going to become a treasure down the road as more and more content is built for it. It's going to become a national resource. And once we put all the scans in there too, along with all the stories around that, absolutely indispensable. We'll capture history like it's never been captured from an Indigenous perspective, of course. The second system that we're building currently is actually it's a healing management system. It's a self-directed process that enables people to heal based on the approaches that clinical psychologists, along with knowledge keepers combined, would do to help really heal from intergenerational trauma. All those stats I shared with you earlier were just, those are the outcomes of trauma or lack of healing. And if you do the healing, all the other stuff comes together. Even having systems that enable you to share across the country, right, wouldn't be enough. You need to incorporate, and John has shared a lot of stuff about that already, you need to incorporate centers of healing to augment, you need a physical space where people like this can come together and learn and do the connection pieces. So it's those two in combination. And some of the elements that John was talking about, he said the space was beautiful, and if you ever come for a tour, you'll see it. We designed it that way. So my team, Jess, Kate, and I, would have renovated the entire building. I guess it's not up there anymore. But so we built the cedar on the walls. We put the floors in, new lighting. new bathrooms, new kitchen. We renovated it all because, like John mentioned, it's about safety and trust, right? You have to build safety and trust, and you do that through a whole herd of programming or opportunities to program. And those programs are really different doors and windows in for different family members so that other family members can get the benefit of the other programs that we develop and deliver. It's really a system combined for healing, whether it's virtual and in person. We don't really stop doing what we do.
And I'm going to ask kind of like for a summary here, but I definitely, Caitlin and Jess, if you want to say a few words, you're more than welcome as well. I told them I was spontaneous if they want to jump up anyway. But I'd like to, in closing, kind of think about, what's your hope for GUM, for Trinity, and your vision? What do you have some?
Yeah, absolutely, and I appreciate that opportunity. So, as I talked about these centers of healing across the country, we've tried and failed to purchase a second center of healing. We were the only bidder, actually, but a developer came in after the fact and upped the ante a lot, and the church was sold to them without us even having another opportunity at it, near Brantford, actually. And I think what we discovered is we're looking at a different way of building. It's a partnership and when we built AO, we bought the building, and then we renovated the building, and then we built all the programming, and we're still building programming for it. But if I was able to do it all over again, I would do it differently. And what I would do differently is I would build the partnership first, the physical space, and I would engage with the entire city, socially, religion, and I would engage the entire city to achieve reconciliation. And I spoke to the federal government about a week ago, I think it was. I did a presentation on the federal budget to the Associate Finance Minister. It was well received. It was what is the business case for reconciliation? I'll tell you what the business case for religion is, but the business case for reconciliation from the federal government's perspective is all those issues I talked about in the very beginning, those all are associated with costs. And those costs are billions and billions of dollars. The justice system is $10 or $20 billion. And remember, 50% of it or 30% of it is with Indigenous people, the overrepresentation, right? If we simply took those costs out of the system by doing the healing so they weren't necessary, and all those systems, not just prison, right? That's the business case, because that money is actually needed for all of our retirees. I was reading a stat the other day that said in 1971, the worker to retiree ratio was 7-to-1. In 2035, it's projected to be 2-to-1. What that really means is there isn't going to be people to pay for all the services unless we change something. There's 1 million Indigenous workers that are either unemployed or underemployed that could be entering the workforce. That's the business case for reconciliation from the federal perspective. There's also a bump on GDP too, on the sort of top line growth side of the business. The business case for religion, though, is probably even more important, I think, because when I think about religion, religion mission typically is helping people. And there isn't probably a better cause than helping Indigenous people out there, whether it's morally or whether it's outcome-based, because there's, of course, the GDP side of it or the federal side of it, the budget side, but there's also a mission size, a cause size of this. And when I think of cause, religion needs a cause to reinvigorate the churches, really, to draw people back to the churches. If you had a cause that helped people heal and helped them become employed, if you have an issue with Indigenous people or an opportunity, you could reinvigorate all of your religions. I saw other articles where there's a decline in religion, right? In 24, that was the first article I sent you. I was talking to another partner of ours who's Graham Singh out of Trinity Foundations in Montreal. And he was saying that I think in 2030 there's going to be 9,000 churches becoming vacant because of really ageism for anything else. But there's a need to reinvigorate and an opportunity to deliver that out. And so that's why I'm hoping to partner with Trinity, but also with Guelph, because there's a need. We already service a bit of that need, but having a footprint here to create a full center of healing would be absolutely fabulous.
Well, thank you so much. And for Trinity friends to know, there's been a special meeting of people who have some passion for your vision. And the really good news is there's a real sense of energy and a sense of questions, of course, but a real sense of hope. And so I want to thank you. And so I know you're quiet back there, Jessica and Caitlin, but you guys jump in. We have a special gift to give you guys, but you guys jump in. You say something before we finish off here. So come on up.
Before I turn over to them, I was having a conversation the other day with a minister from another congregation in Kitchener-Waterloo that's likely going to offer us some space. And during that conversation, Kate, Jess, and I were chatting with him afterwards, after the tour of his church, which is quite large and underused. He was talking about Christ and what Christ actually did. And Christ broke down barriers. That in essence is why we have religion today, was the breaking down of all of those barriers against insurmountable odds, actually, to move everything forward, right? And that's the opportunity that you have. You get to carry on that mission, because this partnership that we're looking at right now is the first one of likely many. You get to lead the way. You get to pretty much change the world for Canada and for reconciliation. You get to show them how it's done. I'll turn it over to the gang. I'm glad Caitlin and Jessica are going to offer some thoughts.
We're staying quiet, letting.
And just so people, you guys are staff you're part of the staff. So
I'll lower the mic because I'm much shorter than Steve. First, thank you all for having us today and everyone who's watching from home. Jess and I work closely together basically on everything. I'm our director of program development, and Jess is our director of our wellness and healing programs. And I think just from our perspective, it's really about, we have a satellite office in Guelph, and that's where we're able to run some of our employment programs. And the whole concept of partnering and working together on this is really about working with churches and working with the space that you guys aren't using all the time. So it's not a matter of taking it and turning it exactly into what we've done in Kitchener. That worked for our first one, but it's really about finding spaces and using it together. So obviously not coming in on Sundays and using this space for some of our programming, but during the week or during different offices, different things, to be able to run our programs out of here. I know in terms of our, for example, Spirit Bundles, we're able to serve about 1,000 people a week on that program right now, just from the office in Kitchener, which also includes driving out to Guelph, where we serve, about 50 or so families, give or take. But we know there's a great demand and there's a big need, and so being able to come to Guelph and run programs like that, it's just about kind of expanding our offerings and our outreach and working together on it. And it genuinely is about working together. It's not about coming in and saying we're going to use all the space and make it exactly into that. It's about creating a vision together and a mission and carrying out kind of the programs that we've been doing and doing that alongside each other.
Thank you.
Anything else?
No.
Jess, can I ask you a favor, Jess? You gave the other day when we had that meeting, you shared your name, your Ojibwe name. Do you mind sharing that?
Yeah, for sure. I'm just going to raise the
I found
mic
that
a little
really,
bit.
I'm even wearing heels today, and I'm still.
I'm also wearing heels, and I'm like about 6 feet tall. But yes, I'll certainly introduce myself in Ojibwe. So, Ani Buju, Jessica Ndijnikas, Wawashashik and Dodem, Salgin and Dojaba. So hi, hello everyone. My name is Jessica. I am Deer Clan, and I am from Salgin Reserve. And I am the Director of Wellness and Healing Services at Anishnabeg Outreach, and it's a pleasure to be here today. And I think it was just important that Kate had highlighted, what our intent is with the use of the space, because I think that's important in our view of partnership is not coming in and taking over all of the space. It's to use space that's underused and work together. So I know that the kitchen's used for some traditional, their pies that you make. Me and Kate, we suggested we're open to making pies as well. Bring us in on some of your initiatives, and we're more than happy to partake in some of the events and some of those things that you do here, as well as there's probably opportunity for you as well to get involved with some of our initiatives and packing of spirit bundles and what that looks like. And so that's really what our vision is on partnership, and we're hoping that we can work alongside each other towards that.
Thank you so much.